Can we talk about it? Do you think? Well, okay. It turned out that Batman figured it out. It was his time.
No.
And then the Omega Beam.
No, I don't know. It's too soon. I told you it's too soon.
Then Superman comes out and he's holding the withered Batman body. You know what I'm talking about, right? Welcome to another edition of iFanboy, the comic book discussion show from the website iFanboy.com. My name is Ron Richards, and as always, I'm joined by
Conor Kilpatrick.
And unfortunately, this guy.
Why is it always got to be this way?
I'm going emotional this time.
This is how I feel.
You're emotional is just to get mean.
We've heard the stories.
That's how it is in the Richards family.
It's Josh Flanagan.
Prove to me I love you. You love
we
me.
are Italian. I know. Yeah, all right, so this is Josh Flanagan.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Nice to meet you. Listen.
We're men.
I'm not too big of a man to admit that I have feelings.
I have feelings.
I have emotions. We've talked about this in the audio show before. We'll be reading something, and it will be done very well.
And it'll catch us by surprise.
Maybe it starts with a hitch in the throat, and you're like, not here, not here.
Yeah. The welling.
But it happens. Yeah. Sometimes it leaves
Not
a tear.
to him so much.
He had a feeling once.
1997.
We're talking about comics that make you emotional, comics that make you cry.
Comics make you cry.
Yeah.
Period.
In whatever sort of how much crying is crying, but you know what I'm talking about. You're there.
The ones that get your heart, you know. Get you. And the thing is that there are a lot of them, and we picked some of our favorites. But Lord knows that I could probably talk more.
Well, here's the thing.
It's not limited to
the interesting part is the discussion before the show. What books we're going to talk about, because they don't just magically appear on the table.
No.
And we were trying to find a superhero book, and it's interesting that most books that get you really emotional aren't in the DC Marvel vein. They're mostly in the
mainstream comics stuff. It's right. I didn't cry at the end of the Dark Phoenix saga.
Yeah,
it didn't get me.
Only thing that I could think of was Final Crisis Requiem, the
Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, the Oreo in the coffin. Did that get you at all?
No, I mean,
no. Okay.
Well,
Cold Dead Heart.
For me, there are two things. We're gonna get to the Cold Dead Heart thing in a second. There's a lot of books that get me, like where I'm like, oh man, that's really rough. But there's never been an actual book that's actually made me cry. And that also goes for prose books.
Okay.
Comics and prose books. But if you know me at all, I'll cry 3 nights a week from the most melodramatic TV show.
That was my question.
Into his pillow.
You're talking about Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy, ER, those, obviously, Glee. I'll be sitting on the couch, tears streaming down my face for a TV show. For some reason, it's the disconnect between the page and me as opposed to the actor and me.
Well, that's interesting about comics, because the one thing that I was thinking about when I came up with the show was the whole thing. This is all me. No, was that comics don't have any of the advantages that a TV show
You don't have actors,
Beats,
inflection,
music.
timing,
Music is huge. All that stuff.
Yeah.
So really, they have just the word and picture to get you. So when they do, it's almost like they've really done something.
Yeah, and it's not.
They've done you good.
It's for whatever reason that distance between the page and me in the books and the comics is not. It keeps me from really over the top. I certainly get choked up. There are books here that got me choked up, but never actual tears.
Right.
The one that came the closest though was Pedro and Me.
Interesting, because there is a connection to real people and images and stuff.
And I think that's why I give it closest. Pedro and Me is Judd Winick's. He wrote and drew his story about Pedro Zamora, who was his co-star on The Real World, who had AIDS and died. I think it's because it's a true story, and because you can really see the pain in the story that Judd Winick. I mean, this is one of his best friends. And it's
It's
the tale of his friend dying.
Yeah.
And knowing that it's real as opposed to some of the other books where they're fictional characters.
I'm going to go ahead and update you every time this happens.
So basically the story, it's he starts casted in The Real World. San Francisco was the second one all time?
No, third one.
Third one. Yeah, LA was second. Third one all time. So this was many years ago. And then going through, he was Pedro's roommate. He wasn't, and this is still at a time where AIDS was still no one really knew a lot about it, even though it was the 90s. Was it the 90s or was it?
It was the 90s.
It was 93. We were in high school.
To then become best friends, to becoming dealing with his friend having AIDS, and then his friend dying, and it's. And Judd draws in a cartoony style. It's much the Barry Ween style of drawing.
I think cartoony stuff works better.
Yes.
Than like a photorealistic.
Because
style.
cartoony tends to focus on facial expression and emotion. So he really nails. There's some sad faces in this book.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
I mean, just you open that, there's people hugging and it's just you take
and
right back.
He really gets that look on the face, you know, that when stuff's going bad and the eyebrows and the crease.
Stop.
It really is.
This one on the subway. And in public place crying is going to be a theme, but I remember getting this on a Wednesday or whatever and reading it, and it's not a big book, and I had a fairly long commute, so by the time I got to get to the end, I was like, on the subway going, oh God, like this will get me emotionally clenched, I guess you could say, in the chest, but it never really got me there. But Pedro and Me is fantastic, and it's a must-read, I think.
Now,
in general, it's a must-read.
If you haven't read it, even if you didn't watch The Real World, it's just a touching
We haven't talked about it
in a year.
It's
in a while, but it is one of the best comics, I think.
I want to go to a couple of books that they're kind of like tough guy books. You know what I mean? But there's bits in them. First up, Preacher. Preacher's one of those books that I say you can recommend to everybody. People who like big tough guy stories or people who like emotional stories, things like that. Some people say you can give it to your girlfriend or whatever.
Not what I would suspect for this topic.
That's what's funny, because when he says, here's the books, and I said, Preacher, and then I went, yes, after I thought about it for a second.
That's because Garth Ennis is as good or better than anybody in the comics industry at making you care about characters and making their relationships come alive and feel real. He actually did this in his Hellblazer work too, oddly enough, which you wouldn't think so, but it's in there. I chose these, and it's the first 2 volumes that I'm holding. He builds up the relationship between Jesse and Tulip. We're going to try not to spoil stuff too much, but it's going to happen about some things. It's hard not to talk about these things. So
we'll just say blanket spoiler warning, because there's going to be plot points. Because plot points are what get you, so we're going to have to talk about it, so we're sorry.
So in a very short amount of time, they build up a relationship between Jesse and Tulip, Jesse's the main character and Tulip is his girlfriend. And Tulip gets shot in the head very early on, and it's shocking because you don't see it coming, and also there's another bunch of books coming out, so when that's going to happen. But for whatever reason, the way that they realized Jesse's reaction to that and everything that happened afterwards, and the story of Jesse's childhood, it's just the most sad, awful thing. And then even at there's these bits in the second volume is called Until the End of the World, so there's these little bits about them early on in their relationship. They're sitting on a car and they're looking at the big Texas sky, and he's like, I'm gonna love you till the end of the world, and it is the cheesiest crap ever, and it verklempt me to hell. It really did. And this is before, listen, I have a baby now, and once you have a baby, you just start crying about everything all the time. This is before that.
Well, and the thing about a lot of these books and a lot of the trigger to the emotion, at least for me, is that it's what's happening in the book, but then it's also the relation of how, because you can relate to that. Sitting on the hood of a car with the girl that you're in love with, looking at and saying, I'm going to love you till the end of time, and all stuff like that. You can relate to that moment on some level, or
what's the common denominator's character?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's something about it though, like it could come off as really cheesy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. I don't know what that secret ingredient is.
Stuff in life that makes you cry is cheesy if you're watching it objectively, because you're in it and you're the person in it and you're affected by it. It's not cheesy. If objectively speaking, if somebody said, I'm gonna love you to the end of the world, a critic would say that's a cheesy line. But in real life, if you're really in love with that person, that probably would feel really emotional.
His dad.
Yeah. Well, Preacher is all about the character, and he does such a good job over 9 trades worth of building his characters up that anything bad happens to them, you
feel so invested in it.
But this is by the second trade. I mean, this is right away. That's how good it is. Moving on, we'll talk about TransMetropolitan by
your love affair of TransMetropolitan.
Well, we talked about this recently, but I picked out this one issue actually. And this is very rarely that I remember an issue. TransMetropolitan number 8. It's called something in here. Doesn't matter. Story is about this woman. This takes place vaguely in the future, as we spoke about.
We talked about this on the TransMetropolitan.
Sci-fi-ish future.
A woman dies and decides that she wants to have herself cryogenically frozen. And this is the story about, it's called Another Cold Morning. This is when they wake her up. And she comes into the world, and she doesn't know what the world's about. She's completely alone. Her husband that was supposed to be
in the world is.
Her husband who was supposed to be along with her, he didn't survive the process. Somewhere along the line, they lost the head, whatever. They clone her into a new body, and then she's thrown out with the garbage basically, and has to live in a halfway house, and is completely alone, and she's not in her own world. And it is some of the most touching stuff I've ever seen in a comic book. Really wonderful story, and that was one of the things that every few issues or so they'd have something like that. But that's like a super high point. Transmet number 8, Another Cold Morning.
One for me that got me all choked up. We've talked about it on previous shows, and we've raved about it over the years.
A few episodes since this has shown up.
Yeah, exactly. The Essex County Trilogy from Jeff Lemire was published by Top Shelf. Came out originally in 3 kind of graphic novels, and now it's collected in this beautiful there's a great hardcover version of this as well, which is great. But Jeff Lemire, now he's doing Superboy, and he's doing stuff for DC, and he's got Sweet Tooth over Vertigo. But he started out, this is kind of his beginning in the comic industry.
Put him on the map.
Yeah, put him on the map. Basically, he's from Canada. These are 3 tales of rural Canada in an area called Essex County, and they're just touching, family-based stories. The first volume is about a little boy who's kind of alone in the world. He's lost his parents, that sort of thing. The last story is about this nurse taking care of this older man. It's the second volume that's the one that got me. That's the one that put it over the top. I believe it's called Ghost Stories. I think that's it. Yeah.
Ghost something.
Ghost Stories. Yeah, Ghost Stories. It's called. It's about two brothers who grow up in Canada, great hockey players. They go to play professional hockey. A girl comes between them. They become estranged. One brother the brother who gets the girl goes on to have this family and build a life, while the other brother stays in the city and becomes a streetcar driver and leads a very lonely life of solitude. And their story from the point of them being kids as hockey players all the way up to the point where they die. And it's just a gut punch after a gut punch when you find out that the girl came between them was one of the brother's wife, and she had this random night with the other brother, and this love triangle between brothers, and then there's a tragic car accident on Christmas.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it's every card that you can play. And I remember reading it and just like, oh God, this is killing me, because it's touching. It's love. It's family, the bond between them, being estranged. Someone who's like, these are two brothers who came up in professional hockey and were like inseparable, and they played well, and then one brother blows out his knee, and
but it was like the separation was really quiet. That sort of pain. Well, it wasn't like they had a blowout
Lemire's
fight.
Thing. Lemire's all about is the quiet, but also, we're not even mentioning, the art does a lot to make it emotional. His art is emotional.
Those eyes, it's just a dot with a couple of lines around it, but you can see the regret.
There's a lot of emotion in his art, no matter what. So when you really add the story on top, that's really good. It's rough.
And the lonely brother, the solitude brother, it's to see about the regret in his life and the choices that he made, and that while to be the better man, but what he lost in terms of doing that, and it gets me on the love level, it gets me on the family level, which is just love it, so good though. But
this is a book when the second volume came out, everybody was talking about it. It was just it was something special.
Yeah, definitely.
Next up,
also from Top Shelf.
Also from Top Shelf, it's true, The House of Tears. Too Cool to Be Forgotten by Alex Robinson.
Whoa, you're getting already.
Yeah.
No, that was
preemptive.
That was just
okay.
Spilkus.
It was just your cigarette before the show.
It was. I love to smoke.
No one knows that. It's amazing.
I look like a smoker.
That's why the show's 20 minutes. He's got to get that cigarette in.
I know.
Anyway.
Now this book, we've talked about it before. Short version, he's actually trying to quit smoking. And he gets hypnotized, and in doing that, he goes back magically.
He wakes up as an 18-year-old with the mind of a 30-whatever-year-old.
Yeah, and he goes back and he starts to sort of relive a bit of his life as a kid, as a teenager, with the mind that he has now.
It's a quantum leap.
Now, the whole time in the background, there's a trail of breadcrumbs a mile wide that you could actually see if you were looking for it. But the whole time in the background is this thing is like they're not mentioning the guy's father. They're not mentioning Andy's father anywhere. And then the sort of climax of the book, the big thing at the end is that he sort of goes into a room and you realize that his dad is dying. His dad's on a bed, and all of the sort of cathartic stuff comes out of the kid, like why he's mad about it at first. He's yelling at him. He's like, why didn't you ever say goodbye? Why did this? And they sort of come to terms with it. And what it is Andy in his own mind is reconciling the death of his father. And the way that it's even drawn, like all the panel borders are taken out, and it sort of exists in this timelessness. It's just black backgrounds and the characters going on there. Really touching, and I should have seen it, but I didn't. And it's like you flip the page, and he walks into the room to see his dad, and the dad's just like, long time no see, and you're just like, oh, I little chills right now just thinking about it. I haven't even read it in a while, but it kicked my butt, big time. So there's that.
Similarly themed, to talk about kicking butt, I think a book that kicked all of our butts, right? I mean, it was.
I don't remember.
I think you were the most, yeah.
But I Kill Giants by Joe Kelly and J.M. Ken Nomura from Image Comics. It's about this was a big bait and switch for me, at least, because it got positioned about there's this girl, and I forget how old she is, but she's young,
10, 11
years old, and she fights giants, and she's got a big hammer, and this is kind of this whole kind of imaginary world
it's like she's built.
Fantasy story, and is it real or is it not? And then you get to the end of it, and you realize that it's because her mother's dying, and it's her dealing with that, and
same
thing as Too Cool, but it's a tale of strength, and it's a tale of moving on, and it's a tale of not letting adversity defeat you, and being
able to. I think he's gonna go now.
Just wait. But it really, and Joe Kelly, I mean, To quote the back of the book, it's a great comic with an enthralling story of love, life, loss, and courage.
Did you know that people who get quoted on the back of books don't get anything from the sales?
You know what?
A little ego boost.
What's interesting is this, too cool a little bit, but there's a similar vein in comics. Telos is also the same thing.
Telos, yeah.
The whole Telos story is a boy and his tiger sidekick in a fantasy world, and it's revealed that it's all in the boy's head because there was a tragic car accident. And then there's
That's so sad.
then there's Joe the Barbarian, which is a whole fantasy world because the kid's dying from but it's like a very much a trope in comics. Is to
the imaginary world that we're built around.
So don't trust any of those fantasy books you're reading. It might turn out to be something really horrible by the time you get to it.
So that one pulled the rug out for me. I mean,
I remember that. It was your pick of the week. The final issue was the pick of the week, and it was a lot of upset.
It's good stuff.
Granddaddy time.
Now the Kubrick monolith in the room right now. Again, I think this is the other one. It's like,
should we dance around it with
Essex
spoons?
County. I thought we put a moratorium on this.
Yeah, no, did we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, oh wow,
we
it's
did.
coming back. Well, the joke for us over the years about the books that make us cry, at least personally for me, was I read Strangers in Paradise by Terry Moore in issues starting in 1998. I got like the first 2 trades. After the first 2 trades, I was on issues from there on out, and it was my staple. It was my indie book. It was the one that I depended on. It was the one that was there. And when Terry Moore announced that he was going to end it, it was bittersweet because I liked the idea of an ending, but I also never wanted it to end. And I never realized that it ending would mean that you would have to come to terms with it ending.
Yep.
And the last 3 issues or so, I mean, we talked about it on the audio podcast. I mean, I was on a couple times I was on the train, New York City, and the person next to me is like, at one issue, the person next to me said, "Are you all right?" Because I was visibly upset. And really, what got me upset is that Strangers in Paradise is the tale. We've talked about it before. Francine and Ketchu, who are best friends, who have this amazing bond, this bond of love and admiration and friendship, and that kind of transcends, just being best friends, and the world that built around them in terms of the supporting characters like David and Casey and stuff like that. And it just created this world. And the whole goal of that world was just to be together and be happy. And that's where Terry went with it, and now I'm losing it because you see these people who you've invested this relationship with as much as you have over the years. To see them get to that point of happiness was all you could ask for. It's all you could ask for the people that you're with, and
then
all that sort of stuff.
Another really sad thing happened just before that.
Well, tragedy strikes.
Where you lose one of the other characters that you really cared about. I don't even need to give it away.
But that wasn't really as much because I really liked him. But
I did. I was real. That's actually probably nailed me more because it was.
Yeah, but for me, it wasn't so much that. It was just that after years of being separated and having conflict and having problems through that tragedy and loss, and what they gained in that loss, being able to come together. And it's the last couple of pages of the last issue of just like the last page of the panel of the door closing, and just like, and they're together, and they've got this life that they spent, at least in reading it, 10 years trying to build and get to.
You just killed all the ironic detachment in the room.
It was just great.
I have nothing
to
now.
the point where I haven't touched it since. I mean, I bought the omnibus. I never even cracked it open.
Well, it's kind of huge.
Yeah, so it's almost too big to read.
Too big to read. Like the bank.
But Strangers in Paradise gets me.
Well, that's again, it goes back to the character. That 10 years of building these characters, and not only their relationship, but your relationship to these characters is built up. So when something happens, either good or bad, the emotional impact is much greater than normal.
Right. Yeah. Totally. And again, it goes back to like with Lemire and the artistry, Terry Moore's ability to do emotion and facial expressions and stuff like that carries it through, and just through the arguments and then the love and just the look. He could draw Kachu giving somebody a look or Francine giving a look, and it just make my heart melt. And so
I think more than.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It hits you, right? Yeah.
I got the chills.
Yeah. So you'll see.
Jesus, that's no kind of joke.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why do we do this show?
That's amazing.
Go. Anyway,
just end it.
So
it's more embarrassing.
So like I said, there are other books that I've read that have brought a tear to our eye. This isn't just, but these are the ones that kind of came to mind immediately.
The big ones that we think about. Yeah.
But go to iFanboy.com. That's our website. That's where we got all these great things, and often we'll write about books like these, and there's great discussion and things like that. Great articles there. So you definitely want to check it out. We also do an audio podcast that comes out every Sunday night where we review the issues that came out.
The new books, the new comics.
Yeah, new comics, and then we also on Mondays we got iFanboy Don't Miss, where we interview creators about a comic book that's coming out. So we got a whole bunch of great stuff at iFanboy.com.
There's even more in there.
Yeah, so
there's more than that.
Make sure you go in there to watch it or check it all out. So.
Call our voicemail line, 888-FANBOYS 326-2697. Tell us who you are, where you're from, talk to us about comic stuff, or send us an email at contact@ifanboy.com. Maybe we'll do it in the show or an audio show. We do emails every time, so send those emails in.
Yeah.
Yes, you could go to twitter.com/iFanboy. You can follow us there. And then if you really are down with the show, the stuff we do, this is primarily run by you guys. So if you want to help out, become an iFanboy member.
Yep, member supported.
That can be done at ifanboy.com/store. And
also, you can get a fun T-shirt at the store.
You get
like a Fury Agent shirt.
This T-shirt.
Yeah.
You could do that. Also, it threw me off by going for the
Sign
T-shirt.
up for a membership at the store.
That was it.
Yeah.
And you can win prizes. That's what I was going to say. You can win really cool stuff, but also you're helping.
We gave away a full collection of Essex County ones.
We did. Yeah. So
good stuff.
So get there and get the tissue. We don't give tissues to members.
I have.
We might start.
I got something in my eye.
We should probably send it. We should send a box of tissues with the Essex County.
Yeah, we should. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Did I ever tell you the story about right after my son was born? I'm waiting in the hospital and mom's down, or his mom, my wife. She's downstairs. Wait though.
That's gonna make sex awkward.
She's downstairs doing something, so I'm in the hospital room by myself and watching TV, and Dances with the Wolves is on. And it gets to the point where all the buffalo have been slaughtered, and then there's one baby buffalo left. I lost my shit. I was like, ah!